this is how I would plan social media posts inside of monday.com and then report on the performance of those social media posts. By the way, if you'd like us to help you set up monday.com for your business, check out the link in the description below. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm inside of monday.com. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be setting up a means of tracking the posts that are ideas due to be scheduled, posted, and then obviously once they're posted, they're completed in the process, and then we want to go ahead and manage the performance associated with those posts as well to see what did better, what did worse, the channels, etc., etc. So nice and simple. First thing that we want to go ahead and do is create a new board. This is going to be our social media planner board. I would call it whatever you want, and then you can go ahead and select the privacy options. So main, everyone inside of the system would have access to this board. Private, only you and select individuals, and then shareable. If you want to share this board externally, you are more than welcome to. And then in this instance, I'm just going to leave the naming convention as items and go ahead and create board. Now, I must warn you, this is not going to automatically post to the respective channel that you're trying to post to. It's not Hootsuite, I think is what it's called, or other channels like that. This is a more manual process, but quite often will be used for larger marketing departments where people put in idea suggestions via a form, for example, and then people can filter through the ideas and then come up with a plan of action for the post, then schedule it, and then ultimately go live with it. And then once it's live, at least then track the performance, and then we can look at reporting on that information as well. So we've got post ideas. So this is at the different stages of the process. So new ideas are added into the system, probably on a daily basis. And then active ideas is probably, or active posts, I don't know, active posts. These could be posts that you're working on. So obviously, once you have an idea and the idea has been approved, it would then need to go into the active stage where you're actively working on putting the components together for the video or the image or whatever the case may be. And then we would have scheduled posts, and then we would have live posts. So those are probably the stages of the process. And then we would have cancelled or declined or non-starter posts as well. So cancelled posts, and hit enter. So as far as I see it, those are the different stages of the process. So cancelled, we would have live, we would have scheduled. This could be in like a blue, and then post ideas. I just call this idea posts, just so the naming makes sense. So idea, active, scheduled, live, and then cancelled if it didn't make it past any of these various stages of the process. What we then want to go ahead and do is just make sure that our status column matches these different stages as well. So idea as the default label, then active. Oh dear, monday.com never likes making changes or the status column messed around with. So then we would have active, and then scheduled, and then live, and then we can use the red for cancelled. And then I think if this wants to work, there we go. So cancelled down the bottom, scheduled, active, scheduled, live, cancelled. Change that to the purple there. Awesome. And then just hit apply. So now we have the different stages of our process. The other thing that I probably want to do is just date created. So the date in which this particular idea was created or added to the system. And then I would probably also add another date column. And this would just be used to track the date in which this was either live or cancelled. So I'll call this date completed. You might choose to just track when it goes live, but you can also have just a separate date column for the actual scheduled date as well. This is just more of an automated thing. So then we can go ahead and add a formula column, which will allow us to work out the difference in days between date created and date completed. So give me the difference in days between date created and date completed. The reason we would want to do this is then we can report on the average amount of time it takes from a new idea to come into the social media planner to actually going live on whatever channel that you're posting it on. So that's always helpful, especially if you're working with external stakeholders and they're submitting ideas. You can then give them SLA to say on average it takes this number of days. So if it's like 2 days before Christmas or a week before Christmas and they're suggesting ideas, it's not particularly helpful if it takes you 30 days for it to go to an idea to actual live. So you can then distribute that information accordingly. So I would call this TTC, time to complete, and then again I would just restrict the column editing on here. So the next thing that we're going to need to do, now we have our basic process and some key data points, is just set up the automations associated with this. So when an item is created, date created, status changes to the different groups, etc., etc. So we go to automate, top right hand corner, manage, and then create automation. And then the first thing that I want to do is when the item is created, we want to set the date created to today. So set date created to today. And then we just need the different stages of the process to move the item to the different groups. So when status changes to idea, move item to group idea. Unfortunately, this is a bit boring, but once it's done, it's done. So when status changes to active, move item to group active. Again, by the way, this can be, or the process can be entirely up to you, but hopefully this just gives you an idea as to how I would think through this. So then we go scheduled, move item to group, and then scheduled, create automation. And then once it goes to live, then we want to automatically set the date. So when status changes to live, set date live to today, or at least date completed to today. Oh, and need to actually move it to the group as well. Oh dear. And move item to group, and then the group being live post as well. And then if we want to set date completed to today for the cancel post as well, we can do. In this instance, I'm probably not going to. So when status changes to cancelled, move item to group, cancelled, and then create automation. Awesome. And that is all done. So now our automations are all sorted. Now we want to go ahead and look at the different data points that we would probably want to track for the planner. So first and foremost, the most obvious one for me is a drop down menu of the different channels that you're planning on posting this piece of content to. So you'd have channels, and then I'm guessing Instagram, and then Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, Pinterest. Wow. LinkedIn. Is that how you spell Pinterest? I don't even know. Never been on the website. LinkedIn, nor do I go on LinkedIn. But you can go ahead and select what you're posting on. So you've got new ideas, you select the channel. We probably also want a long text, which is going to be a description. So post description. So just to give, especially if this is coming in via forms, people context as to what the actual post is going to be. We're then also definitely going to want a files column, which is the actual creative associated with this particular post. Post description, we might also add, let's say, a long text for the post copy on here as well. You could also use a doc if you wanted to. Actually, that's not a bad idea. What we'd probably want to do, I think, is actually use a doc, which is a Monday doc, and then there we go. Monday doc. So a Monday doc can be created for each of the posts that you're looking to make. And then you can go ahead, click in, and then create the doc, and within the doc you can go ahead and write the copy and other things. So I think that would probably be quite useful. We've got the files that we can upload. You can also just link it. My recommendation would be to store the actual files, or at least the content, outside of monday.com, and then probably either just use a link column, or you can use a file column and then connect to Google Drive, OneDrive, whatever the case may be. That way it's just a nightmare uploading stuff into monday.com. And then I'm just trying to think what else. You could have post types, for example. So anything else that you're looking to track. We're then definitely going to want to have a date column, which is the scheduled date. What's happened there? Did that get created or not? There we go. So this is the date in which, or the live date. So the live date. So this is the date in which this particular post is to go live. So let's say the 23rd of October. We could then run an automation that says when that date arrives, then move item to group live posts. What you can also do is go to settings, customize, and also show a time by default as well if you wanted to. So if you see the date and the time of that particular post. I know we've worked with businesses in the past that they've got kind of like different messaging groups. So you might, I don't know the best way of describing this, to be honest with you. They had it wasn't a type, it was more messaging. So they had, it was kind of like campaigns in a sense, but the campaigns would never change, but they would have a post attributed to different campaigns. So you could track that information here. I mean, this could be campaign or message number 1, making this up. And then messaging number 2 as an example. My point being that the more data points that you can track associated with the post in status or drop down columns, the more options we have to report on the information as well, which I think is always very, very helpful. So have a think about the data points that you want to track, and then obviously you can go through the different stages of the process. But this is a basic setup. What I would then look to do is with our live date, I could then go ahead and create either a calendar view or a Gantt view, and then I'd be able to see all of the different posts coming up. So I go to cog in the top right hand corner. The only data point that we want is the live date, and then you could color by, and this is a great example, color by the messaging. So I know one of the clients that we worked with in the past for something like this, it was very important that they didn't have 2 of the same message going out on the same day. So if we have that as messaging number 1, we had that as messaging number 2, messaging number 1, let's just say this is the 24th, I'm kind of just making this up, and then this can go on the 28th. We'll then see on the calendar the different messaging types and the days in which that post is going live as well. We can also we could label it by, let's say, the channels if we wanted to, so we could see which channels they're being posted on. I'm trying to think what else you would probably want to look at. Status could be the status of the post as well. You could also only group by the scheduled post, so you can only see stuff that's likely to be posted or at least been scheduled to post on here. Get rid of cancelled as well. Again, a lot of options. It's entirely up to you how you want to format it, but pretty simple setup. The more data points you can track within the status columns and the drop down columns, the more accurate your reporting is going to be. And then again, if we look at the calendar, we can go ahead and let's just say we move this to scheduled, move this to scheduled, move this to scheduled. So they'll all now populate on our calendar view, as you can see here, because they're all in the group scheduled. Why is that one not moved? That one, maybe it was already scheduled. There we go. So we can see our data points, and then again, coloring by whatever we want to color by. So that's the absolute basics. Okay. What I would probably do is go to automate, and I would go to create automation. I would say when date arrives, and then when the date arrives at whatever time, let's say 7 a.m, the live date, then I would change the status from, well, you just change the status to live. So it goes from scheduled, when the date arrives for the scheduled date, then it changes to live. So automatically we will then move to the group live posts. Now, the nice thing about this is we can then report on all of this information. So we can report on the number of posts per month, the number of posts by messaging. Obviously, we've got all of the scheduled information. We can then look at the number of posts by channels per month. And then what we also want to go ahead and do is look at the performance associated with our posts. Okay. So I would add another board, and I would call this social media performance. Okay. Again, privacy options are entirely up to you. I'll leave the naming convention as items for the time being. Now, this is a place in which we can deposit the performance associated with each of our posts. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this group as we only need one. And then I'll just call this performance, for example's sake. We don't really need any, I mean, you could track the date if you wanted to report multiple times associated with a post, but I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay. So the status column I would have is a different channel. So I would report as performance back per channel. So let's go Facebook. I'll go YouTube, try and make the colors make sense, and you'd have all of the other channels as well that you'd potentially be posting on. So let's go ahead and add LinkedIn, and then I will delete these. Let me just explain this to you or walk you through it before you go, this makes no sense at all, because at the moment I don't think it's going to make sense. So we've got status column. Okay, the status is the channel. So now we can report channel by channel. We then want to go ahead and I'll delete the date column for the time being. Let's keep it simple, and also the person column. And then we want to go ahead and create a connection column between our performance and our planner. So we can then go ahead, press connect boards, and then connect between performance to our planner. Make sure you press create a two-way connection. And this is going to be the social media post. or post. So now I can go ahead and connect this performance submission to a post. I would also just unselect allow linking to multiple items, so you can only link one performance submission to a post. So item number 4 is now connected to the performance tracking, as you can see here. Okay, so what we can go ahead and do is just reposition this over here, or if it's not going to let me, but this is just example post number 1. We then have the social media planner. That performance is associated with this post. What we can then go ahead and do is start reporting on some of the key data points that we're looking to track for that particular post. So we can go ahead and look at impressions. We then might have, I don't know, let's keep this simple, number of likes, number of comments. So again, tracking what's done well, what's created engagement. So impressions, we would have likes. I think that's how it works. And we would have another numbers column, which would be the comments. And then we could look at also, we want to see number of website clicks generated from this post. If you can look at that data, so number of website clicks or lander visits, I would say. And then we can also look at, let's say, numbers again, and leads generated as an example. Now, this is obviously going to differ for you as a business, depending on the data points that you want to be looking at. But now I can say that we posted this on YouTube. The impressions were 10,000. We got 300 likes, or 3,000 likes, 50 comments. We had 12 lander visits and 10 leads as an example, right? So now I can go ahead and then report on this information. But the other important thing is I can then roll all of this data up onto my social media planner in totality. So you might be reporting different channels for the same post. So again, example post number 1. And again, you might have only had 3,000 impressions on here, 50 likes. We had 1 comment, but we had 3 lander visits, 2 leads generated. Again, depends how much detail you want to go into. But the idea being that we can track performance associated with our posts here. Someone obviously has to manually do this, which is quite unfortunate, but it is possible to do. You may also then have a date column, and the date column would track the date in which this performance was submitted. So you could do the same channel for the same post per week or per month. Again, you don't necessarily have to. You might just say after 1 week, we're going to assess the value, the performance, and then add the values in. And then after that, we're going to forget about it. But then if we go to our social media planner, what we can go ahead and do is mirror over data from our performance. So you can see we've got 2 performance submissions associated with the social media planner and thus the post. And now I can get the total amount of impressions for this post irrespective of channel. I can then go ahead and mirror over the, let's say we want to go ahead and mirror over, and I'm not going to do all of them, otherwise we'll be here all day, but let's just say lander visits. So now it's going to show me lander, total number of lander visits for this particular post. And then the all important one, if we go to mirror again, we can go ahead and look at the number of leads generated for this particular post. So this takes into consideration all of the performance submissions associated with this particular post. You can see here we had 10 for YouTube, 2 for Facebook. And then obviously we can report on this information as you see fit. So you can see by channel, for example, what's the number of impressions we get on average, what's the number of leads we generate on average, leads by post, outliers. You can also mirror back data from the post onto your performance if this helps with your reporting. I'll probably make a separate video on the reporting side of things, but as an example, you can mirror over the messaging or post messaging. So now I can report on post messaging by performance by channel. You can see that maybe one channel is doing better for one type of messaging versus another channel is doing better for another. You get the idea, right? But now we have this data available to us and the other data points that we're tracking here. We can then go ahead and see, well, this particular type of post, this messaging, this angle, for example, seems to be performing better. So I can go ahead and I can reposition this wherever I want. And again, we can then go ahead and look to create reports on all of this as well. And this, I appreciate, is a bit long-winded, but We've set this up in the past, and this was a really, really effective means of tracking the performance. And once you start gathering a lot of the data associated with the posts, it becomes a lot easier to understand what you're doing, why you're posting in particular ways, what's working, what's not working so well. And then ultimately every post has an end goal, right? Which for a lot of businesses is leads generated. But again, you might have different types of posts for different intentions, such as brand awareness, engagement as a different type, and then leads generators as an entirely separate post type as well. You then might also use this kind of process or something not too dissimilar for your ads performance as well. Again, that's not going to be live, but worth reporting here, because then once you have all of the data available to you, you can chop it, change it, and then report on it. So hopefully this video has been helpful, giving you a basic understanding of how I would look to manage social media posts inside of Monday.com, and then critically report on the performance of those posts to make more informed decisions about what is and or is not working through your channels, your messaging, your posts, and so on and so forth. If you would like us to help you set up Monday.com for your business, doing things like this, or probably things far more complex, check out the link in the description below. Book a call with me. We can have a chat about how we could potentially help. But thank you ever so much for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully it has been somewhat helpful, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you and goodbye.